I never thought I'd walk into my own home and feel like a stranger. But that day, everything changed. The laughter I once cherished became knives in my chest. I saw her, them, in our bed, where we shared our dreams. My world shattered in an instant. I wasn't just betrayed. I was erased. Everything I believed, gone. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, but I could act. What I did next wasn't planned. It was instinct. It was survival. And now, all that's left is the aftermath of my choice. The choice that ended everything.
My name is Dennis Williams, and I'm feeling very anxious right now. I'm rushing through the hospital to my wife's room. When I burst into the room, I see that her sister is there with her. "Steph!" I shout, worried. "They made some kind of mistake with the baby."
"What happened, honey?" she asks. Even though she's in pain, my wife looks lovely. She smiles at me, a mix of love and a hint of playfulness in her eyes. Her sister is also smiling at us. "I think it's just a mix-up," I say, and both of them smile even wider. They exchange a glance that I can't understand. But they're clearly confused. "Confused about what?" she asks. "They're saying we have 2 babies," I explain. "They think we have twins."
"Oh no,"
she gasps, her face showing surprise. Her sister can't contain herself and starts to laugh. "Well, super dad," says Steph. "If you hadn't passed out during the delivery, you'd already know we have twins. The doctors found out, but since we decided not to know the sex or any details about the babies, only you and I didn't know." She motioned for me to come closer. "Give me a kiss," she said playfully. "That delivery took a long time, Dennis. It feels like forever since I felt close to you." I leaned in and time seemed to pause, as it always does when we're together. "But we're not ready for twins," I said. "We had everything set for a boy or a girl. Our plans were perfect. Now we're left wondering again. We have to figure everything out from the beginning. What are we going to do?" She took my face in her hands and pulled me closer. This moment lingered, bringing a sense of calm. When she finally let me go, I felt a wave of reassurance. "Sweetheart," she said, "when I saw you again a year ago, I didn't expect any of this. I just knew that I wanted you very much and that we were meant to be together. I've been figuring things out as we go. I know you are an engineer. You like to make plans and designs, but I take each day as it comes. As long as we are together, I believe everything will turn out fine. I watched you plan every detail, even the nursery, and it looked like a wonderful idea. But dear, sometimes things don't go the way you expect. I love Steph more than I have loved anyone else in my life. The only ones who might come close are the 2 little girls in the baby room down the hall." But as she talked to me, I blanked out on one thing she said. She mentioned, "Sometimes things don't go the way you expect." It was strangely ironic because just under a year ago, another woman told me the very same thing. I remember it like it was just yesterday. It was an early Saturday in July, about 10 in the morning, and the sun was bright in the sky. The weather forecast said it would be another sunny day with temperatures in the 90s. Like most Saturdays, I woke up early to trim the hedges, clean the pool, and mow the lawn. My wife, Belinda, was inside the house, making everything nice and tidy. Just as I turned off the mower, I heard her shout, "Get out of my house!" she yelled. Then I heard some laughter from a few of my friends. I went inside through the back door and saw my energetic wife engaging with my friends. I call her energetic because she is full of life and always moving. Belinda used to be a cheerleader when we were in college. Now, 10 years later, she is still very pretty and has a lovely smile, though she has changed a bit over the years. Back in college, she was one of the most popular girls around. We didn't really fall in love. We were more like pushed together by our situation. She was the most beautiful cheerleader, and I was the quarterback. To date anyone else would have felt completely wrong. Belinda was loud and confident, while I was shy and thoughtful. Even though we were quite different, it worked for us. Belinda could cheer louder than anyone else around. She believed in herself and was sure she would always get what she wanted. I didn't say much and didn't act like a typical quarterback. I wasn't the flashy type. Our coach knew I was a thinker. I usually played it safe and made good choices. After losing 3 games in my first year with a more daring quarterback, he decided to put me in instead. I never gave him a reason to regret it. He always knew what to expect from me, and I always gave my best. I wasn't very flashy, but I did my part, and we won a lot of games. My teammates respected me, and we helped each other out. There were a few guys I didn't get along with, but they were very few during my 4 years in college. After college, Belinda and I kept dating. I found a job designing parts for a company that made performance parts for cars. Belinda got a job in marketing. Exactly 1 year after we graduated, she surprised me by asking me to marry her. At the time, it was a big shock to me. I really liked her and enjoyed our time together, but I never felt a strong connection between us. My friends looked at me like I was making a mistake. "Dude, she's a cheerleader. She's beautiful. Why are you still hesitating?" A year into our marriage, I was still waiting for that special feeling they talk about in all the romantic movies. What actually happened was Belinda sitting down with me in our home office holding a pile of bills. "Dennis," she said, "here are all our bills. This is how much we owe," she said, pointing at a number on the computer screen. "And this is what you earn." She showed me another number. I nodded, trying to show I understood. Then she looked into my eyes, leaning a little closer. "Dennis, I really hate my job. Can I ask you something?" she said, bending down. "Why am I doing this work?" She then told me many things, like how her boss paid too much attention to her and how the other women in the office were jealous of her. She felt like no one respected her. I told her it was okay if she wanted to quit. By the end of that night, I felt overwhelmed and unsure about everything. A few weeks later, I found out my wife had not been honest with me. It wasn't just her boss who looked at her in that way. Most of the men there stared because her blouses were cut very low. Some seemed to be waiting for a wardrobe malfunction. The women didn't respect her, too, partly because her outfits were so revealing, and also because she didn't put in much effort at work. I learned that just before she asked me if she could quit her job, she had called her boss a very rude person and walked away because he suggested she dress differently. So on that Saturday, 2 of my friends were sitting in the house when Belinda walked in with a few of her friends. It wasn't unusual for us to have many people over since we still spent time with friends from college. When Belinda saw Danny and Ray at the kitchen table enjoying some beers, she lost her temper. She looked at me as I came inside. "Dennis, I just cleaned the house," she yelled. "I don't want your noisy friends messing up our home before my guests arrive." "Don't worry about it," I replied. "We were just going to relax by the pool. Maybe I'll work on my car a little. I want to change out some parts and tune it up later." "Oh, no," she said sharply. "Things don't always go as planned. That can't happen today. I have some friends coming over that I haven't seen since college. We need to go over our plans for our 10-year reunion this summer. I don't want a bunch of messy friends around. I don't care where you go or what you do, but do it away from here." "How about we go bowling instead?" Danny suggested. "Golf sounds fun," Belinda said. "You all should go play. Drive around in one of those small carts and hit some balls." So I took a quick shower and changed into my golf clothes, and we were ready to go. An hour later, the 3 of us arrived at the golf club. Just like always, we were having a good time. We made up our own rules. We drove around the course, hitting balls wherever we wanted. Most of the time, our balls didn't even come close to the holes, but we didn't mind. If you lost track of your ball or didn't want to look for it, you could grab another one and start from wherever you wanted. I had already gone through 8 balls, and we were just on the 3rd hole. We called our game, "I Don't Care About Golf." As we played, we caught up to a group of 4 golfers ahead of us. 2 of them were women. At first, we only saw them from behind. They looked like they might be out enjoying a nice day together. One of the men was getting ready to hit his golf ball, and Danny started laughing at his clothes. He made fun of how tight his pants were and how silly he looked when he swung at the ball. When the man hit the ball and it flew far away, Danny called out, "Wow, did you see that? I told you he swings just like Arnold." The man turned around and smiled at us while we relaxed in our golf cart, waiting for them to move. He was chatting and laughing with his friends. "You messed up now," said Ray. "That guy probably likes you." "Why's that?" asked Danny. "Well, you said he swings like Arnold Palmer," Ray replied. "No, I didn't," Danny said. "I meant his swing is a mess. I was talking about Arnold Ziffeld, the pig from Green Acres." We all began to laugh, but stopped when the group looked our way. I felt a chill run through me as they stared back at us. One of the women stood up to take her turn next. As she got ready to hit the ball, she leaned forward, and I felt my heart race. Her pants fit tightly, highlighting her shape in a striking way. I felt a jolt when she turned and glanced back at me. She tossed her hair, and a cascade of bright red curls framed the most vibrant green eyes I've ever seen. "Wow!" both Danny and Ray exclaimed at the same time. What really surprised me was when she winked and silently acknowledged me. My friends looked at me and gave me a friendly pat on the back. The guy from their group shot me a sharp look. He stood up and walked over to us. "Do you guys want us to play through?" he asked. "We don't want to slow you down." "Nah," Ray replied. "We're good. We're just going to sit here and take in the scene. In fact, we might need to slow down so we can stay behind you." "Well, I don't like a bunch of guys watching my wife all afternoon," the man said. Just as he finished speaking, the woman approached us. "Is your wife here, Clark?" she asked. "I didn't even know you were married." She walked right past him and directly to me. "Hi, Dennis," she said with a big smile. Many things happened at once. Danny and Ray sat back on the golf cart watching like it was a show on TV. Clark's face grew angrier and I felt frozen, unable to respond. She came closer and I couldn't move. She stepped up to me with a warm smile and the moment felt electric. The brief thought in my head about my marriage faded away in that instant. I didn't even think about the fact that we were in a public place. When I pulled back, she smiled, and nothing else mattered. "You have no idea who I am, do you?" she asked. I shook my head. "Stephanie Calhoun," said Danny behind me. "Do you remember our last year of college? She was a freshman and you helped her with math. Everyone thought it was sweet. She really liked you until Belinda made you stop. Belinda didn't think it was sweet at all." Then I remembered. Stephanie had bright red hair back then, but it was shorter. She wore big glasses and had braces. Over the years, she had grown up a lot. I still felt something for her even back then. I think Belinda had noticed. It wasn't just Stephanie's looks that I liked. It was her kind heart, and how it seemed she liked me, too. "I remember her," said Stephanie. "Belinda was your mean girlfriend, right?" I nodded slowly. "She wasn't very nice. What happened to her?" she asked. "Oh, she has changed a lot," Ray laughed. "Yeah," said Danny. "It's a big change. They got married, and now she's his difficult wife." "Oh," said Stephanie. She wrapped her arms around my neck, offering a warm embrace. "Stephanie, what are you doing?" shouted Clark. "We're—" Stephanie turned to him and gave him a steady look. "We're what?" she asked. "We're just co-workers, Clark. That's it. I'm here to work with your company. I invited you to play golf with Ted, Julie, and me. You said yes. I came to play golf, nothing more. You and I are not a couple. Even if you act like we are, this was never a date." "But didn't you hear what they said? The guy is married," he complained. "SFW," she said, shrugging her shoulders. "What does that mean?" Clark asked, annoyed. "So what?" responded Stephanie. "I lost him once, and I felt bad about it for the past 10 years. It's not happening again." "Julie, can you help her out?" Clark complained. "Clark, I've known her for 3 years. Once she decides something, she sticks to it. This is the guy who caused her marriage to fall apart, you know. You're just mad because you think he's going to take what you wanted, maybe right here on the golf course, from the looks of it." I was surprised. Stephanie was holding my hand. "I think you 5 should go and play golf," said Stephanie. "Dennis and I will head to the clubhouse to eat and talk for a bit." Danny, always the sensible one, spoke up. "No way," he said. "I'm not leaving him alone with you." "Me neither," Ray agreed. "Fine, you two can come with us," Stephanie said. "Julie, I'll see you on Monday at your job. I'll handle everything from now on. Clark is clearly too upset to manage my business." "But," started Julie, "how—" "Don't worry, Dennis will make sure I get back to my hotel," she assured. "I'll call you tonight if he has to leave early, and we can go see a show or something." We walked over to the golf cart, and the 4 of us drove to the clubhouse. Danny and Ray looked really stiff, but I was feeling great. We found a table and ordered lunch. Once we started talking, it felt like Danny and Ray weren't even there anymore. "Steph, what did your friend mean when she said I ruined your marriage?" I asked. "I haven't seen you since—" "I know it was over 10 years ago," she replied. "Anyway, you guys were a bit ahead of me in school. Your senior year was my freshman year. After your ex-wife made you stop helping me with my studies and made you cut ties completely, I finished school and moved to Florida. I never stopped thinking about you, though. I dated a few guys, but always compared them to you. I made a mistake, though. I ended up marrying one of them. He was a nice guy, and that was kind of a problem. Why was being nice like me a problem? I asked. Dennis, remember when you helped me with school and loved Mustangs? Remember how I didn't know much about cars? So I made a bunch of car pictures to put in your locker? She asked. I laughed and nodded. Are you still crazy about Mustangs? She asked. I nodded again and smiled. Well, think about it. Imagine you needed a car, and someone gave you a Camaro or a Challenger. You'd drive it and be thankful, but deep down you wouldn't feel happy. That's what happened with Phil. He was a really good guy. He tried so hard to make me happy. But in the end, it just didn't work. When he told me he met someone new, I think I was happier than he was. Our divorce went smoothly, and we're still good friends today. I've met his new wife, and I even help take care of their kids sometimes, she said. Sorry, I replied, feeling down. Why are you sorry? She smiled. I'm the happiest woman in the world right now. I never thought I would see you again, and now I've not only seen you, but I got to hold your hand and share a moment with you. Hold on a second, Steph, Ray interrupted. Dennis is married and... My name is Stephanie, she snapped, and that's the only thing you should call me. She turned back to me, her expression softening. Besides, I don't worry about those kinds of things. I owe her one anyway. If she hadn't pushed us apart, who knows how things might have turned out. After we had finished eating and talking while holding hands for a bit, Danny and Ray decided to go home. I offered to take Stephanie back to her hotel. She kept trying to convince me that we should go out and do something fun. My phone rang, ending that part of our chat. After I said a few yes and nodded my head, I hung up. Let me guess, Steph said. That was bitchy poo, right? Yes, it was, I replied. I'll see you two later, I told Ray and Danny. We could drive her back to her hotel, Ray offered. We can stay out past 4 p.m. We're adults now. Come on, Ray, I laughed. Just don't do anything I wouldn't do, Danny said. You probably meant don't do anything you couldn't do, Steph shot back. Oh, believe me, I can, Danny replied. Not with me, Steph said. I'm a one-man woman. She took my hand and we walked toward the parking lot. Are you going to get in a lot of trouble? She asked. Who cares? I said. It's worth it. She smiled and squeezed my hand. Belinda. So do you think Eric will come to the reunion? Penny Chappell asked. Hold on, Pen, I told her. I walked across the room and leaned over to my mom, who was chatting with some of my friends. Mom, as soon as Dennis gets back, he'll take you home, I said. Why isn't he here now? She asked. I don't have all day to wait for him. Mom, he's not here because I told him to go out and do something, I explained. I didn't want him hanging around and getting in the way, and I didn't want his friends eating all the snacks or interrupting the planning. He better get here soon, she said. You need to be more assertive with him. I noticed a couple of my friends glancing at my mom, clearly puzzled by her behavior. My best friend Della almost spat out her drink and coughed loudly. She stood up and followed me as I returned to Penny. Belinda, your mom is acting a bit unusual, she said. I agree, Penny chimed in. So, are you going to tell me what's going on? Oh man, I hope not, I replied. Being with Eric was the biggest mistake I ever made. I nearly lost Dennis because of this. He had the divorce papers ready. If you two hadn't led him to believe I had too much to drink that night, I would have definitely lost him. Maybe that wouldn't have been so bad, Della said. It might have even worked out. How could that possibly be good? I asked, surprised. Well, if he divorced you, Della explained, then you could have been with Eric for good, after waiting for a while at least. I suddenly realized that my best friend looked too pleased with herself. I began to feel uneasy. But if you waited, you might be too late, Penny added. I would already be with him. Now I felt even more uncomfortable. Being with Eric was terrible, I admitted, and it wasn't just because I felt bad about my choices. Eric, let's be honest, he doesn't understand what's important, and he makes a big deal out of little things. I got so tired of him talking about himself that I didn't know what to think. It was the worst decision I ever made, and if Dennis finds out I was with Eric more than once, my marriage would be over. Why did you do it? Della asked. Dennis is in better shape than Eric, and he's more appealing. He has a good job and really cares about you. Your BMW probably cost at least twice as much as his Mustang. Belinda, that man loves you. He puts up with a lot from you. I heard him this morning working in the yard, and then you told him to go do something else. That felt pretty unfair. You treat him more like a servant than your husband." "Why are you saying this to me, Dell?" I asked. "I've already admitted I made a mistake. Maybe I'm not the kindest person, but I do value what I have, and in my way, I do care about Dennis. There won't be any more Erics." As I thought this, I walked around to check on the other guests at their tables. Before that moment, I hadn't really considered it since it seemed settled. The unsettling part was realizing that, besides me, no one else believed it was done. Even more concerning was that my two best friends seemed ready to step in and support my husband if things turned sour. I could see why Della felt that way. She was divorced, and her first husband was difficult. He had been quite unkind, often relying on her for support while engaging in questionable behavior. When he wasn't consuming her resources, he was often involved with someone considerably younger. But then there was Penny. She was still married, and it perplexed me why she would be interested in Dennis. Was she contemplating changes in her own situation? I knew Penny, and she was the type of person who always sought something better than her current circumstances. They needed to be aware that pursuing Dennis, even after my divorce, could jeopardize our friendships. It appeared they were indifferent to that concern. I considered their feelings and attempted to understand their perspective. I imagined myself linked to Eric, the person I had been unfaithful with. If Penny had been with Dennis and moved on, I could see myself interested too, particularly if I felt discontent in my current relationship. I recognized their rationale, but I needed to remember that my relationship with Dennis was not genuinely in jeopardy. I may not always act perfectly, but I care for him, and he cares for me. I acknowledge that I don't consistently demonstrate my feelings. Part of this stems from my upbringing. I was somewhat pampered as my father's little princess. I was a cheerleader from middle school through college, which often meant having my desires met. After college, Dennis entered my life, bridging the gap that my father had left. My fleeting romance with Eric was a regrettable choice. Thankfully, Dennis's deep affection for me kept us together. Della and Penny had spun tales to protect me, convincing Dennis that my time with Eric was a mere blunder. Because of their intervention, Dennis chose to stay. He wanted to address the situation with Eric, but I earnestly asked him not to. This was motivated not by concern for Eric, but by the fear that confrontation might reveal the truth and drive Dennis away again. Yet, I began to sense that one, or perhaps both, of my close friends were contemplating revealing the truth to gain my husband's favor. I could potentially harm either of them if it came to that. I glanced at my watch. There was no way it took 45 minutes to travel home from the golf course. Dennis was likely displeased that I had interrupted his game to take my mom home. He and my mom had never seen eye to eye. Dennis put forth significant effort to please her, but my mom often acted as if she were royalty, treating others as if they were there to serve her. Finally, Dennis entered. He greeted several of the women in the room. I was in tune with my feelings, and I sensed an unusual shift in him. I couldn't pinpoint it, but I knew something was amiss. When he approached me, his demeanor felt different. As he looked into my eyes, I realized for the first time since I had strayed that I truly might lose him. And it didn't have to be because of what I had done before. Dennis had spent over 3 hours that morning cleaning the pool, trimming the hedges, mowing the grass, and tidying up the yard and garden. When he finished, I treated him like he was just a helper, even though he was the one who bought the house and paid the bills. The look in his eyes showed me he was upset, and I could see that I was in a vulnerable spot. Maybe that was what Penny and Dell had picked up on, too. Sure, I might not fit into my old cheerleader outfit anymore, but I wasn't the only one. Dennis could still wear his football uniform. He even used it as his costume for Halloween last year. That made me realize I needed to do better. "Hey, can you take my mom home?" I asked him. He didn't reply, just nodded and walked over to her. A few moments later, he had gathered her things and was guiding her to his car. I started to wonder how he dealt with his frustrations. He just wanted to get in the car, drive her home, and come back. Mom was acting like she was royalty. She had to talk to everyone one last time and say goodbye to all her guests. My mom was being really over the top. After Mom and Dennis left, I began cleaning up. I was picking up the dishes as the last few people started to go home. The party had gone well, and we made many plans for the reunion. I needed to make sure Eric did not get invited to the reunion. The last thing I wanted was for him and Dennis to team up. While I was in the kitchen, my phone rang. It was my mom, and she was speaking softly but sounding quite frustrated. Dennis, the drive to my mother-in-law's house had just started when she began her usual chatter. As always, she was telling me how lucky I was to have Belinda. Belinda was the prettiest girl in school, and now she had grown into a lovely woman. Her mother often said that Belinda could have married anyone, even someone prominent like the Pope, and it wouldn't have surprised anyone. "You need to do better, my friend," her mother said. "Otherwise, one day Belinda might leave you." "Actually, this is my house," I replied. "Not if you get divorced," she said with a grin. "The woman usually gets the house and the children. That only happens in certain places where there are children involved," I explained. "And why won't you let me have grandkids? You're so selfish," she shot back. I turned on my iPhone and opened the voice recorder app, choosing not to answer her question. But it didn't help. She repeated it, even louder this time. "You heard me, Dennis Williams," she demanded. "You self-centered person, why won't you let me have any grandkids?" "Actually, Belinda wants to wait a bit longer before having kids," I said as kindly as I could. "Her stomach has gotten so big, I almost thought she was expecting already," her mother said. "This is all you're doing. You make her eat all that unhealthy food. You're trying to make her so desirable that no one else will want her, aren't you? You poor fool. You're worried she will leave you for someone better. Well, be prepared for that, because it will happen sooner or later." Then she began to laugh. "And don't come to me upset when she leaves you," she chuckled. "I always thought she was too good for you. Why don't you have a nicer car? You should get one of those fancy German cars like Belinda has." "I bought Belinda's car for her," I replied. "Well, you should have chosen a bigger one in a better color," she said. "Belinda's car is really nice." "Is it better than a bigger one in a nicer color?" I asked. "Don't talk back to me, young man," she snapped. "Belinda chose the color and model of her car herself," I said. "This car is too loud," she complained. "All I hear is vroom vroom. It sounds like a race car. Grow up. I'm embarrassed to be seen in this thing. And, wait, you're driving too fast. Why are you stopping?" "Get out," I said. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Please get out of my car," I said calmly. "It's clear that my affordable $40,000 customized Mustang doesn't meet your standards. So I stopped here, where you can find your way home." "Belinda is going to be mad at you, buddy," was the last thing I heard her say as I drove off, leaving her at the bus stop. When I pulled into my driveway, Belinda was just coming out of the house. She looked very upset. As she walked to her car, she misstepped and broke the heel of one of her shoes. "Dennis, tell me this is a joke," she yelled. "Please say you didn't leave my mom stuck at a bus stop far away." I just shrugged. "What could an old woman have done that was so bad for you to leave her there?" she asked angrily. I took out my phone and played our earlier conversation. Her eyes widened, and then she smiled. "Oh, honey," she said. "You were upset because my mom called me fat. Sure, I've gained a few pounds since college, but it gets worse," I said. She kept listening. Then her expression changed. "I thought she liked my Beamer," she said. "Nope, it gets worse than that," I replied. "It's when she said she felt ashamed to be seen in my Mustang. I couldn't let her feel that way, so I had to ask her to leave. I won't be driving your mother anymore for her visits. If she doesn't learn to behave, she might not be welcome at the house." Belinda walked away, even more upset than before. A few minutes later, my phone rang. "Are you home?" Ray asked. "Where else would I be?" I replied. "Danny and I are coming by to help you clean up the leftovers from the big party. We're bringing beer." Less than 5 minutes later, I heard Ray's voice over the back fence. "Are you ready?" "Yeah," I yelled back. Then a case of Dos Equis amber flew over the fence. Ray caught it just in time to avoid falling into the pool. Danny climbed over the gate a moment later. Danny tripped on the top of the fence and fell flat on his chest, expressing his frustration loudly. "Come on, Dennis," he said, annoyed. "You need to fix that fence." "I think I hurt myself and messed up my chest. Maybe I should sue you." I couldn't help but laugh. "What's so funny?" he asked, clearly irritated. "Danny, what do you do for work?" I inquired. "I'm an engineer, just like you idiot," he replied, rolling his eyes. "Well, I think you'll find this interesting," I said. "I created something. It's kind of like in Star Trek. It's like a transporter. He looked at me with doubt. No way, he said. Okay, it doesn't really take you to other planets, I explained. But it helps move your atoms from one side of a wall or fence to the other instantly. You won't ever have to climb over it again. We'll be rich, he said excitedly. No, wait, super rich. What's it called and where is it? I call it, I said, glancing around to make sure no one could hear us. I call it. He leaned in closer, eager to know. I call it a gate, and you just climbed over it, I said with a grin. I opened the gate and it swung open smoothly on its hinges. Ray couldn't stop laughing. A gate! He shouted, laughing even harder. Danny looked like he was about to explode with laughter. I used to like you, Dennis, he said quietly. Shut up, Ray. You climbed over the fence, too. A few minutes later, we were all sitting by the pool enjoying drinks. Ray was eating potato salad straight from a big bowl with a fork. Danny had a whole tray of cold cuts on his lap. So, what happened with Steph? Danny asked. You mean Stephanie? Ray yelled, pretending to mimic her voice and icy tone. That's her name. You need to call her that, nothing else. We all started to laugh. That girl is a little eccentric, Danny said. But she's really pretty. Why do you always get the pretty girls? She's not really eccentric, I replied. She's just used to a lot of guys trying to impress her, so she acts distant to make them leave her alone. Away from the people who were clearly excited about her, she was just as quiet and gentle as she used to be in college. But she doesn't look the same as before, Ray noted. If she had looked like that back then, I definitely would have wanted to be with her. No, you wouldn't have, Danny replied. Women like her usually pick one guy. As soon as she saw Dennis back in school, I think she was focused on him. When Dennis left, she waited until she found someone just like him to marry. That woman has a genuine interest in you, Dennis, and she will find a way to connect with you. Sounds like a real strong attraction, doesn't it? Didn't you see that she doesn't even mind that you're married to Belinda? Just being around her, you can tell that Stephanie would go to great lengths for you. She thought she had lost you, but now that she's found you again, she's ready to make her move. What are we going to do about it? What do you mean? I asked. Dennis, you showed interest in her, and I noticed how you look at her. You want to be with the freshman. Belinda stopped it before, but I think it's time to consider your options, he said. Okay, I'm confused, I replied. What are you talking about? I think that when you finally do decide to be with her, you should consider that if she wants you, she might appreciate including Ray and me too, he suggested. That's a great idea, Ray added. And you're not in a tough spot. Your wife, Skankzilla, owes you for that time she got drunk and was unfaithful, and you forgave her. I don't understand why you did that. There's just one problem with your plan, I said quietly. And what's that? Danny asked. I think I really like Steph, I said seriously. I think I might love her, I admitted. But you've only seen her once after 10, Ray started to say. Danny quickly covered Ray's mouth with his hand. Are you serious, Dennis? He asked. I nodded. How serious? He pressed. Like really serious, I replied. I think I have a thing for redheads. Okay, so we need to help you find a way to move on from Skankzilla, he said. I never liked those cheerleaders anyway. They act so high and mighty like they're better than everyone else. I haven't liked the way she treats you. Or us, he continued. Let's get started on a plan. I jumped right into Plan A. It involved me giving Belinda a bit of a taste of her own medicine. When she came back about an hour later, upset about her mother, I didn't say I was sorry or try to lighten the mood like she usually wanted me to. As soon as she walked in, I turned to her and said, Quick, can you get me a drink before it starts? She hurried to the kitchen and brought me a drink. I finished it quickly and looked at her. Get me another one fast, I said. It's going to start soon. She went back to the kitchen and returned with another drink. I opened it and started to drink while she began to talk. Dennis, my mom was really upset, she exclaimed. I can't believe you left her at a bus stop in that part of town. Oh no, I said. It's begun. She looked at me with surprise. What's begun? She asked. You expressing concern about something that I really don't see the point in, I replied. Your mom got in the car and just kept criticizing everything. Me, you, your car. When she began to express her embarrassment about my car, I thought about how she felt. I didn't want her to be unhappy, so I let her get out. Sometimes people just need a moment of quiet. I got up and left her there, wondering where the kind and easygoing husband she knew had gone and what had changed in me. About an hour later, she came out on the porch when she thought I had calmed down. "You know, Dennis, you shouldn't take my mom too seriously. She's just an old lady. You know how people get when they get older. Since my dad passed away, she doesn't have many people to talk to. She's feeling lonely." "Belinda, they say that knowledge is supposed to come with age, not foolishness," I replied. "Maybe the reason she's lonely is that she doesn't know when to be quiet. I think she has never thought I was good enough for you. In her mind, I'm supposed to be some kind of servant or a rich provider. But we've been married for over 10 years. You'd think that should give me a little respect, even if she's not that fond of me." She just stared at me. She began, but I jumped in again. "What really gets me mad is that she lied to me," I blurted out. She turned to look at me. 3 years ago, after that event," I felt a small smile as I saw her tense up. I knew mentioning that would make her uneasy. "Your mom and dad came over to talk to me," I said. "They tried to convince me not to go through with the divorce. She was concerned and expressive back then, too. She promised she would treat me better. I guess her promises don't mean much. It just makes me wonder what else around here I can't trust or who else is being dishonest." She took a quick breath and smiled while holding my hand. She said she would get ready for bed and that she'd see me later. I could see that she was upset. Belinda, after the reunion planning party, I noticed that Dennis was acting differently. He seemed frustrated and often wanted to argue. If I didn't know him well, I might think of 2 reasons for this change. First, I thought Dennis was hurt. It seemed like he noticed how I had been treating him, and it made him feel bad. I worried that he might think I didn't love him and that frustration was his way of showing his feelings. The second reason I thought about was that one or both of those friends, Della and Penny, might have said something to him. Maybe they made him see how I really treated him. It could have been someone else who talked to Dennis, but I truly felt after our conversation on Saturday that it was either Della or Penny. The tough part was that I couldn't think of what to do until I figured out who had talked to Dennis. If it was either of them, I had a lot to think about. I felt trapped and helpless when it came to dealing with the situation. If I upset either of them, they could easily tell Dennis more than he already knew about my past with Eric. They could also reveal that I was not as impaired as I claimed. If that happened, my marriage would be over faster than I could imagine. I tried to focus on mending my relationship with Dennis. I wanted to spend time together, but he often turned me down. He seemed to spend a lot of time on the golf course, likely because I had asked him to go there that Saturday, and he was using it to show me he was upset. He also hung out a lot with his old friends, who often acted tough. I couldn't say anything negative about them, as they had been in his life for a long time. They had played football with him in high school and college, and he didn't want to let them go. Maybe I should try to make them like me instead of pushing them away. Dennis seemed to be looking for ways to argue with me. One thing he did that showed he was upset was almost amusing. When I got frustrated with him, I would pretend I was too tired or not in the mood to engage with him. After a week of this, I could get just about anything I wanted from him. But this time, Dennis was turning the tables on me. On the night of the planning party, he came to bed, and I waited for him to show some affection. Instead, he rolled over and acted like he was going to sleep. After a while, I realized he really was asleep and had moved as far from me as he could on the bed. I was taken aback. When he did it again the next night, I knew I had a problem. The next day, I wore my most eye-catching blouse and made sure he noticed me, but nothing changed. By the 4th night, I was feeling quite disappointed. I started to think about what I could do besides just asking him for more connection. A woman shouldn't have to do that. I had never approached it this way before. Until now, Dennis had always wanted to be close to me every night. I was the one who had to slow things down. If I had followed his desires, I would have been exhausted and overwhelmed. I had been with a few guys before meeting Dennis in college, but he was truly the best of them all. Part of what made him special was how much he cared for me. He always made sure I felt happy before he wanted to be close. Even in our college days, that made him stand out from the other guys who weren't as thoughtful. Most of those guys thought they were the best thing for women. They believed that wearing those tight pants and playing sports made them better than everyone else. A few of the guys on the team expected special treatment, but they weren't willing to give anything in return. When I teased them about it, they looked at me like I was crazy. They acted like they wouldn't even consider being kind to me. I joked with one guy about us both enjoying each other's company, and he just laughed and said he'd get me back later. "What do you mean?" I asked. "You help me, and I'll help you when I can," he grinned. Eric was the only time I had ever been unfaithful to Dennis, and I felt it was Dennis's fault. You see, Dennis was so good to me that I started to believe I deserved even more. I treated him worse as I expected more. I began to wonder if there was someone out there who could make me happier than Dennis. Eric was a decision I regretted. First, it was because he treated me poorly, but I suppose I deserved it. He knew I was married and thought that a married woman looking for romance was acting badly. It was also a mistake because Eric was not good at building a genuine connection. He was a bit bigger than Dennis, but he rushed into things without taking his time and then turned away. It was over before I even processed anything. He insisted on using 2 layers of protection, one for safety and the other for peace of mind. There was no tenderness. He assumed that if I was unfaithful, I would be eager and ready right away. He also mentioned that most issues stemmed from close contact, so he wouldn't engage intimately with a woman who wasn't exclusively his. The most upsetting part came when I discovered he was discussing our encounter with others. He even attempted to intimidate me, showing up at a party to pull me away from Dennis. He had been telling his friends about our time together and asked me to join him in his car. I just wanted him to stop discussing it. After the first encounter, I knew I didn't want to see him again. He assured me that if I agreed to be with him one more time, he wouldn't mention it to anyone. So I found myself in his car again. It was even more challenging the second time. Afterward, I returned inside and began to drink heavily, seeking to forget what had just occurred. I was meant to feel special. After all, I had been the head cheerleader and was often seen as a princess. I shouldn't have felt forced or used. In trying to drown my feelings, I heard a lot of shouting. I noticed Eric running through the house, looking upset, and then he dashed out the front door. "Serves you right!" I shouted after him, slightly intoxicated. I became quiet when I saw 2 guys trying to prevent Dennis from pursuing Eric. Everyone in the room was looking at me. "What's happening?" I asked, still holding a nearly empty bottle. I felt Dennis's cold stare. "Nothing," he replied. I dropped the bottle and it shattered on the floor. His nothing made it clear that there was indeed something. Even though I was drunk, I knew I was in a difficult position. I attempted to walk over to him but struggled to maintain my balance. "Dennis," I whispered. "I loved you, Belinda," he responded. "We've been married for 6.5 years, but I loved you even before that. I've always wanted what made you happy. I loved you with all my heart, but it seems it meant nothing." He turned away from me and left the house, driving off in his Mustang. That signaled the end of the party. Della offered to take me home so I could gather myself. The next morning, I felt completely lost. Dennis wouldn't answer the phone. He didn't want to talk to me. We were apart for almost a month before Della and Penny helped him understand that I had been inebriated when things happened, and Eric had taken advantage of the situation. Once we were back together, it took time to convince him not to confront Eric. I told him he had already gotten his revenge by standing up to Eric at the party and making him leave. Honestly, I just didn't want Dennis to know the real story about Eric and me. Now, I worried that one of those girls who liked Dennis might tell him what really happened. Dennis still wasn't himself after the first week. I had strong feelings for him and wished we could be close again. I saw him watching the cheerleaders during a football game, so I decided to talk to him. "Dennis, are you thinking about a cheerleader?" I asked him. "I could go upstairs and put on my uniform." "You'd tear it apart trying to fit into it," he said. I was really mad. "I used to have a body just like theirs," I replied. "You had a better body than them," he said, and I felt better thinking I had misunderstood his first comment. "Well, I still have the same shape," I said softly. "That's true," he said. "You still have the same shape, but it looks different now." I was really upset. "Dennis, my bust has just grown since then. Most women get curvier as they grow older. My bust, which you seem to appreciate, is bigger now, so my body looks fuller. Are you saying my bust makes me look overweight now?" I asked. "It's not about your bust," he said. "I love your shape. It's not your bust that makes you look overweight." "Well, you should know that married women don't dress as attractively as single women do."
My clothes are also looser because I prefer comfort. I already have my guy, so I don't need to squeeze into jeans that are so tight I can hardly move. Are you saying you want me to wear tighter pants? Do my pants make me look big? No, Belinda, he replied. Your pants don't make you look big. It's your legs, your bottom, your belly, and those droopy cheeks that make you look that way. I almost smacked him. The next day, I gathered my friends Della and Penny together. After talking to them both, one by one, and then as a group, I was pretty sure they weren't betraying me. We went over everything that had happened, and they helped me see that I was the one who caused all this trouble. Then we tried to think of a way for me to fix it. Dennis. This isn't working, I said. I figured that, said Danny. Am I covering for you while you play golf again? Asked Ray. I just smiled. Come on, Dennis, how much golf do you really need? Are you trying to be Tiger Woods or something? I can't help it, Ray, I replied. I love her, but she's going back to Florida soon. I feel like I can't take it. Time for Plan B, said Danny. What is Plan B? I asked. I've done everything mean I can think of. I've called her names and I've pushed her away. Like you could ever go back to her after everything, Ray teased. Can you just call her by her name? I asked. Don't get upset with me, Dennis, Ray laughed. I've had your back for 4 years in football. Every quarterback needs someone to watch over him. Besides, you know I can't call her Steph. Everyone else has to call her Stephanie, and that's just too much for me to remember when I'm not the one dating her. Gentlemen, said Danny. Ray and I exchanged confused looks. I meant you two, he added. Guess who's in town and looking for a job? He asked. Ray and I were confused. Hank Walker, he said. Oh man, I really dislike that guy, I replied. Hank Walker was another player from our past team. He was not a team player at all. He only cared about his own numbers and never thought about the team. Do you dislike him enough to use him to help us with Skankzilla? Danny asked. We need Hank for our backup plan. What's the backup plan? I asked. Plan A was for you to argue with Belinda and then go for a divorce. That didn't work, so now we need to be tougher. In Plan B, Belinda cheats on you again. That way you can divorce her, and since we don't live in a state where everything is split in half, you can keep most of your stuff. If it goes well, the 4 of us can be in Florida in a couple of months. What 4 of us? I asked. You and Stephanie, plus my wife Annie and me, he said. You and I are engineers, so we can both move to our company's office in Florida. Annie is a nurse. She can find a job anywhere, and I'm tired of cold winters. What about me? Asked Ray, sounding upset. You're single, silly, Danny replied. You can do whatever you want. Then why didn't you include all 5 of us? Ray complained. I want to be part of things. I'm not sure you are a good influence on Dennis, Danny said. Plus, you always seem to chase after women. I thought you would want to stay here and be with Skankzilla. You always wanted a cheerleader. Sure, but I wanted someone who is vibrant and lively, not someone who looks tired and has a worn demeanor, Ray replied. And she has a bad attitude, too. She acts like she's so special that she doesn't even notice anyone else. When she eats, there's something almost ethereal about her presence, as if she radiates light. That's probably why her belly is so big, said Danny. What are we going to do? I asked. Remember how you ruined Hank's chance to play in the NFL? Danny asked. Me? I replied. Don't play dumb, Dennis, Danny said. Hank got a bit too full of himself. He even tried to charm Belinda, so you decided to teach him a lesson. You waited until that game with all the scouts watching, then you made it hard for him. You wouldn't pass him the ball unless he was closely guarded. Even then, you threw it just over his head so he had to leap for it, and he took quite a fall. After you did that a 3rd time, they took him out of the game. From what I hear, he still walks with a limp and has back pain. I can't believe you think I did that, I replied. I can't believe you did it because of Belinda, Ray said. Well, she wasn't so awful back then, I answered. Only to you, Ray pointed out. Anyway, Hank hates me, I said. Why would he help us? Because he won't even realize he's helping us, Danny said with a grin. He'll think this is his chance to get back at you. We just need a few things, and make sure your lawyer is ready. When this happens, we will need to act fast. In the next few days, I found a lawyer. I only told her that I was sure my wife was being unfaithful again. The lawyer was known for being tough in divorce cases. Learning that Belinda had cheated on me before and I had taken her back helped a lot.
She believed we could convince the court as well. Based on how Belinda was speaking, I was pretty sure she would be staying with her mom at the senior home once everything was over. I also needed to buy several new video cameras and listening devices for our house and for Belinda's phone. I picked up handheld cameras for whoever was watching. It would probably be Ray, since Danny was busy with Hank. Ray had convinced Hank that I was still a cocky jerk, acting like I was better than everyone else. They met at a bar a few times, and that was enough to make Hank want to get back at me through Belinda. I should mention that Hank had a wife and 2 kids who had come to town with him, and he was out of work. That same attitude of I come first had messed up his place on the team and caused him to lose many jobs, forcing him to move back home. Hank also thought that losing his confidence because of his injury and not making it in professional football had ruined his career. He blamed me for all the times he got fired. In fact, he traced every mistake and failure throughout his life back to me. He even pointed fingers at me for things that happened before we met. I was a big problem for him, and I had never realized it. Well, after this was done, I would need to find a way to let him know that I had let him down once more. According to Danny, things were going well with Hank. We did have a few small issues to fix, but they were nothing that some money and careful planning couldn't solve. The first problem was that we needed to change Hank, who was out of work and looked pretty rough, into someone who could impress Belinda. Belinda still thought of herself as a beautiful cheerleader, and Hank, who was overweight, losing his hair, and married, was not someone she would ever notice or want to be with. The obvious solution was to buy Hank a suit or two and give him some money to spend on Belinda, but then he would likely wonder where the money came from and why anyone would go to such trouble. We decided to bring in Danny's wife, Annie. She was happy to help us for a few reasons. First, she thought the idea was funny. Second, she wanted to move to Florida. And third, she really couldn't stand Belinda. Annie had gone to college with us and still remembered how rude Belinda could be to people she thought were not good enough. Annie was just a hard-working nursing student at that time. Since she wasn't a cheerleader or a prom queen, Belinda didn't pay much attention to her. The interesting part of that last meeting was that Ray and I got to sit in a bar wearing hats and disguises. Danny called me just before Hank arrived and kept his phone connected to mine so Ray and I could listen to everything they said. "Hey, Danny," Hank said nervously as he sat down. "I had some questions, but, I see you have someone with you." Annie jumped in to play her role. She stood up, looked at Hank, and shook her head. "We need to buy him some new clothes and get him a haircut," she said. Both of those things were clear. Then she really started to make her point. "He's still a really nice guy even after all these years," she added. "That girl is wild," Ray whispered next to me. "He's only 33 or 34 like us, but he really looks much older." "Be quiet, you idiot," I whispered sharply. "They can hear you on the phone. She's just trying to help him feel better." "Oh, I knew that," Ray said with a smile, but then he looked puzzled. "How does lying to him help?" I shot him a glare and he stayed quiet. "So you're involved in this too?" Hank asked. "Who are you?" "I'm Annie Namkova," she replied. "I went to college with you as well." "You did?" he said, surprised. "I don't remember." "You don't remember me, right?" she continued. "I wasn't very well liked, so that's not a surprise." "So you don't like Dennis either?" he asked. "Not at all," she replied, laughing a little. "Oh no, she messed up," I said. Even Danny looked away. But surprisingly, Annie picked herself up quickly after her mistake. "I'm sorry for laughing," she said. "But it's really empowering to say it out loud with others who feel the same way I do. I fell for his smooth talk once. Like many people, I thought he was just the nicest guy around. He won me over completely and almost disrupted my marriage." Ray and I looked at each other and even gave each other a high five. We were amazed by Annie's acting skills. "I'm getting that woman an award," I whispered. Everyone in the bar was watching us. "Yes!" I cheered. "Go Blue!" Ray shouted. The people who were watching us turned back to their own activities and forgot about us. "You're married?" Hank asked. "To him," she said, pointing at Danny, who looked surprised but quickly covered it up. "Yeah," she continued. "That guy Dennis almost disrupted our marriage. It took us years to get past him trying to win me over. I still can't believe he went after the wife of his best friend."
He's just pure evil. I can't stand that guy either, Hank said with a sneer. He messed up my whole life. First, he kept me from getting into the NFL. What did he do? Asked Annie. I think he paid the players on the other team to hurt me, said Hank. Don't they try to do that already? Annie asked. Yeah, but when you pay them, they really go for it, Hank replied. And if that wasn't enough, I think he's been following me around the Midwest, getting me fired from one job after another. I bet he pays people to let me go. They always find dumb reasons to fire me. That's why I know he's behind it. What kind of reasons? Asked Annie. I could see she was struggling to keep a straight face. Well, I've been fired for not selling enough, Hank said, frustrated. It's clear he went to my customers and paid them not to buy from me, and I've been let go for being rude 3 times. I think he is connected to the last 2 incidents. I would put everything on it. Why just those 2? Annie asked. Well, the most recent one was really quite unpleasant, he said. A woman who looks like that should be grateful someone even noticed her. And the one before was overweight. People think heavier women want attention. How can an overweight woman claim harassment? Someone must have helped her, and we know who it was, right? Annie stood up suddenly. Excuse me, she said. I need to use the restroom. When she returned to the table, her face was still flushed. Danny and Hank were still talking about why he believed I was stalking him across the Midwest and ruining every job he had. Sorry, I really had to go, Annie said. Why do you think he's after you? I understand why he acted the way he did towards me. Both Danny and Hank turned to look at her. It was about attraction, she said. He was looking for love, and no one could compare to Belinda, right, Danny? Danny nodded. But why would he follow you everywhere and mess up your life? She asked. Because he was jealous of me, Hank replied sharply. He always has been. The quarterback is usually the leader of the team, but my natural leadership made him insecure. Plus, he was dating Belinda, and she liked me. He knew I could take her away, so he used sneaky ways to keep her. So Belinda really cared about you? Asked Annie. Both she and Danny struggled to hold back tears. If that guy hadn't gotten in the way, Belinda and I might be married by now. She really liked me, but a lot of women do. You said it yourself. I'm a good-looking man, he said. Yes, said Annie. You and Belinda are meant to be. Tomorrow you and my husband will go shopping together, and the next night we'll arrange for you and Belinda to meet. From there, we just let things happen naturally. Aren't you going to come over? He asked. Maybe a woman's thoughts on the clothes would help. I've already made a mistake once, she replied. I'm not sure it's good for me to be around you too much. I understand, Hank said. He stood up, finished his drink, and then left the bar. As he reached the door, he turned back and gave Annie a look he thought was charming before walking out. Hank and Annie couldn't stop laughing. I got up and headed to the door. Hank was waiting at a bus stop across the street. I made sure he got on the bus and then joined Ray, Danny, and Annie at the table where they were still giggling. I hugged Annie tightly, lifting her off the ground. Thank you so much, Annie, I said. You were amazing. Hey, stop that, Ray said. You don't want to push things too far again. We turned to him. You've already come close to causing a problem with her marriage, Ray said. She's lucky that Danny took her back. Ray, said Danny. Let me guess, said Ray. You're okay with Dennis being with your wife. Wow, I never thought you were weak. And you'd think if you were going to let someone be with her, it should have been me. I'm the only one of us who isn't married, and... Danny and I just shook our heads. Ray, that didn't happen, I said. I don't go around being with other men's wives, especially not my friends' wives. He looked at Annie. You had a little misunderstanding with Hank, he said. He's not nice, said Annie. But he's only not nice because Dennis has had his share of difficulties, said Ray. What I can't figure out is how Dennis has time to do all of his work while following Hank all over the Midwest, complicating situations. Ray, I'll explain it to you later, said Danny. Annie looked at me and smiled. This was fun, she said. Wait until I call my cousin and tell her. She'll get a kick out of this. I looked at her in surprise. She nudged Danny in the side. You didn't tell him, did you? I forgot, Danny replied. What? I asked, confused. Okay, you should know this, Danny said. Annie has never liked Belinda, even back when we were in college. She always thought you were too kind for Belinda, so she tried to match you with her cousin.
I don't remember that, I said. Yes, you do, Danny insisted. Last Saturday, Della, who is friends with Annie, called her to ask why she didn't come to the party your wife was having. They chatted for a bit, and the way Belinda handled the situation came up. Della mentioned that we were going to play golf. Annie then called her cousin, who was visiting for work, and told her where we would be playing. Her cousin arrived at the golf course just before us, and since then, you've been getting to know her better. So, my Steph is your cousin? I asked Annie. Annie stared at Danny, her eyes wide open. So when we get married, I'll be your cousin? I asked. Yeah, Annie said with a smile. I told you, Danny added. Belinda, nothing I did seemed to get through to Dennis. He wasn't even following my simple requests anymore. A few days ago, I kindly asked him to stop at a beauty supply store on his way home. I wanted him to check what colors of red nail polish they had. I told him to take some pictures and text them to me so I could pick which one I wanted him to bring back. He didn't stop at all. When he got home, I looked for the nail polish bags. Where's my polish? I asked gently. You forgot, didn't you? He looked at me strangely, a smile on his face. I didn't even stop, he said. It hit me then that my mom was right. Dennis was acting strangely and a bit rude to me. I thought he would start singing, "We shall overcome any minute." Belinda, I love you, he said. I already knew that. Even though he had been acting poorly toward me for almost 2 weeks, I knew Dennis cared for me. We hadn't been close in a long time, but he still loved me. I think he was trying to prove a point. My mom said he needed a good talking to, and his next words were making me think she was right. Belinda, I have to work all day, 5 days a week, he said. I didn't understand his point. Someone had to earn money, and I didn't think it should be me. You're home all day, he went on. You do some cleaning and whatever you want, all day. You don't have a set schedule. You don't have anyone giving you tasks. You don't have a deadline. You don't have a team to work with. You can do anything you like, at any time. Well, Dennis, that's why I quit my job, I replied. So if you have all this free time, he said, sounding frustrated, why can't you get up and grab your own nail polish? Because I was relaxing, I answered. If I had to get up and drive around, I wouldn't be relaxing anymore. He just turned away. That meant another night without closeness. Actually, he went to the golf club again. I felt responsible because I was the one who encouraged him to go. At least he was being thoughtful. I noticed he now took showers at the golf club. He always smelled clean when he came home. In the past, he would go bowling or golfing, come back invigorated and want to spend time with me. I miss those times. The next day, while I was out shopping, a man stepped in front of me so suddenly that we bumped into each other and he dropped his briefcase. I was about to say something when he looked up and noticed me. My goodness, Belinda, is that really you? He said. You haven't changed at all. I bet you could still wear your cheerleader outfit. I just smiled back at him. I just finished a meeting with a client, he told me. Usually I don't go to them, they come to me. But this is a big deal, worth $3 million. So, what brings you here? I was out shopping, I replied. I would love to hear about your life and what you've been up to since school, he said. Can I buy you a coffee or a drink? I answered. Either one is fine. He chose the bar right in the building. After putting my shopping bags in the trunk of my BMW, we sat down together. We started chatting, and before long, we filled the afternoon with conversation. It took me a moment to remember Hank from college, but as he started to compliment me, I relaxed more. Hank shared many things I didn't know, like how much of a jerk Dennis had been back in college. I also found out that Hank had always had feelings for me. I could hardly remember him trying to flirt with me in school. The only reason it stuck in my mind was because I found it funny that Dennis got so jealous he shouted at me to stay away from the guy. By the end of the day, Hank was getting surprisingly close, and I felt conflicted. Hank seemed like he had money and really liked me. But I loved Dennis. The problem was Dennis was treating me poorly because I had hurt him first. We couldn't let this go on forever. Eventually, one of us had to change. I felt a lot of longing, but Dennis wasn't being loving because he was upset with me. I thought maybe it would teach him a lesson if I showed some attention to someone else. But I knew I couldn't tell him. Then I worried about what would happen if he found out. This time there would be no chances to make things right again. But I started to reconsider when Hank got too close for comfort. I often thought of certain moments as special, reserved for my husband. But if my husband wasn't fulfilling that role, perhaps I could explore it with someone else for a time. My thoughts wandered. Hank wasn't as good-looking as my husband. He was out of shape and had an odd smell. But he managed significant accounts at his job. If Dennis caught wind of it, I could just move on with Hank instead. An hour later, we were in a small motel room. I paid for the room because Hank only had large bills, and he thought the manager wouldn't be able to change one. Hank tried hard, but I ended up feeling even more upset. He may have been bigger than my husband, but he was having trouble being enthusiastic. He said it was due to stress from work and asked if we could try again later. We planned to meet at the same motel the next day. I went home feeling a mix of excitement and frustration. But I wasn't upset anymore. If Dennis didn't show me any affection that night, I was determined to make something happen with Hank the next day. Dennis didn't know it, but he was about to lose a chance at happiness. For the first time, I saw that Dennis wasn't very bright. He may be an engineer, but my husband was acting foolishly. When I got home, Penny came to visit. I promised her I wouldn't tell anyone and shared what I was going through. She looked at me as if I was making a mistake. "Belinda, Hank Walker isn't right for you," she said. "Don't you remember him? He's not as handsome as Dennis." "Hank really wants to be close to me, but Dennis won't even try," I replied, feeling frustrated. "If you can't be with the one you love, you have to find someone who can make you happy." "But Belinda, do you remember how the lunch lady used to look back in college? Remember that woman who weighed about 400 pounds and had a big mole on her nose? She was the one who actually looked better in her hairnet, right? She smelled worse than cafeteria food." "Yeah," I said, shivering at the memory. "You know, Hank Walker dated her. He went after anyone who showed interest, and he's known for something," she said as she took out her phone to call her husband. "Do you remember Hank Walker from school?" she asked with a grin. "Yep, that's him. Isn't he known for some sports record?" She kept smiling. "I know he was a big football player until Dennis got jealous and messed things up for him," I replied. "Belinda, Hank Walker still holds the NCAA records for the most fumbles in a season and the most dropped passes," she added. "He's also the only player ever to run straight into a goalpost and knock himself out," she said with a big smile. "See, I told you he was a big-time football player," I grinned. "Maybe I'll tell Dennis I bumped into him and he'll get jealous." "Sweetheart, don't be silly," she replied. "If Dennis hears about Hank being close to you, it could complicate things." "So what? Hank makes millions now," I said. "Unlike Dennis, who seems like his best days were in college." She rolled her eyes and shook her head. "I'm going to give Dennis a chance," I insisted. "But I'm only doing it because I care about him. If Dennis doesn't step up tonight, tomorrow I might consider Hank." "Belinda, please don't do this," she pleaded. "Don't worry," I assured her. "I wouldn't actually let Dennis find out. He only caught me last time because that annoying Eric showed up at a party and started talking about me. Dennis doesn't even know that Hank is in town." Feeling good, I settled onto the sofa to wait for Dennis to get home. When he arrived, he changed and bounced down the stairs. He looked really happy. I can't remember the last time I saw a grown man radiating such joy. He went straight to the door. "Where are you off to?" I asked. "Going to play golf," he grinned. He even playfully poked me. "Those are pretty big," he joked before heading out. "Dennis, you forgot your golf clubs," I called after him. "Belinda," he frowned, "I don't want to use those clubs. I brought them because you bought them for me, but they're not my favorite. I tried leaving them at the club, but someone brought them back. I left them at a bus stop near the golf club, and when I got home, they were back on our porch." He sat down next to me and looked into my eyes. "Belinda, I don't want to keep things from you anymore," he said. "My game has really improved. I really enjoy golf now, but I haven't used my clubs all week." He stood up and walked out the door. I heard the loud sound of his Mustang's engine. My mom was right. That car was really noisy. But I remembered he liked it that way. He had spent extra money on the exhaust system. I would need to explain that to my mom later. That night, Dennis came home just after dark. I knew he didn't like playing in the dark, so he usually returned by around 10. His golf game must have been tiring because, even though he was smiling, he looked really worn out. Luckily, he had taken a shower. I went to our room and he was already in bed. I got ready for bed and moved closer to him. I pulled the sheet away and tried to get his attention. After a while, he said, "Sorry, honey. I used up all my energy on the golf course. It was amazing. We kept going from one hole to the next. Afterward, I felt exhausted too. I couldn't understand how the professionals managed it so well. Maybe tomorrow, I thought as he fell asleep, still wearing that silly smile. I was frustrated. Dennis was finally in a good mood, but we still didn't connect as I had hoped. Well, he had his chance, but now it was Hank's turn. I thought Hank could wait until Dennis was truly ready again. However, I did receive some positive news. I learned why Dennis had come out of his bad mood. It wasn't anything I had done. I should have noticed it sooner. Dennis had started acting differently the day of the party. My treatment of him wasn't the issue after all. My friends had been mistaken. The truth was, he was upset because of his guilt. Dennis really is a good person. He's like my little puppy and felt ashamed for how he had treated my mother. He had been in a bad mood ever since he left her at the bus stop. This morning he called her from work to apologize, and things seemed okay between them now. When he got home, he felt happy and full of energy, although he spent that time playing golf instead of being with me. The next morning, I woke up when Dennis leaned over and gave me a gentle kiss before heading off to work. My Dennis was back, but I still felt a bit frustrated. I was upset because Dennis had made me feel terrible for more than 2 weeks over something involving my mom. He had no right to take it out on me. I know my mom talks a lot, but that didn't mean he could direct his feelings toward me. I still had my date with Hank planned. I arrived at the motel and went to the same room we had the day before. Under my clothes, I was wearing one of my special outfits that I had ordered just for myself. This one had a piece that made my waist look smaller and gave me a nicer shape. I hoped it would impress Hank. When I knocked on the door, Hank opened it. Something seemed a bit strange. Hank was wearing the same suit he had on the day before. Why would a rich man wear the same suit 2 days in a row? "Hank, isn't that the suit you wore yesterday?" I asked. "Oh no, I forgot. I must have worn it again," he said. I realized he was single. No one would let their partner wear the same clothes 2 days in a row. "I guess I wore it because it's my favorite suit, and I wanted to look good for you," he said. "You're really beautiful." I could feel warmth spreading through me. It was a nice beginning. It wasn't the same feeling I had with Dennis, but Hank definitely had me feeling excited. I felt a mix of emotions as we spent time together. Although it was a different kind of excitement from what I had experienced before, it still had a strong effect on me. But before I could say anything, there was a loud crash. Hank seemed too tired to even lift his head. I wasn't sure why, since he hadn't really done much. I turned my head to see over him and gasped in fright as people rushed into the room. 2 men came in with cameras. One had a still camera and the other was taking video. My mother was there too, along with a few people I recognized. Dennis's 2 big friends were there as well. My mother looked at me and shook her head. But the worst part was seeing Dennis. He looked terrible. Tears were running down his face, and he kept crying out, "Why?" He sounded like someone trying to copy that famous scene when a skater was hurt. Then I heard a sharp, high-pitched scream. That noise seemed to wake Hank up. He jumped up and started to get dressed when he heard a loud scream from outside. As Hank quickly stood up, Dennis seemed to recognize him, and something changed in him. I had always found it kind of intriguing that Dennis could get so possessive, but this time I felt scared. Dennis ran over to Hank and began to strike him hard. Even though they were about the same height, Dennis was smaller but much stronger than Hank. In just a few seconds, he had already hurt Hank's face and continued to hit the bigger man without stopping. Hank couldn't seem to defend himself. Then the screaming got louder and closer. Suddenly, a short, heavy woman with a big hooked nose came into the room, followed by 3 of the most unusual-looking children I had ever seen. The woman looked like she could play a hobbit in the Lord of the Rings movies without needing any makeup. Her feet were also quite large. "Stop hitting my husband!" she yelled. Dennis faced her with anger. "Let me do it!" she shouted. She ran up to Hank and kicked him hard. Hank let out a scream that was louder than anything I had ever heard. He was on the floor in pain, and some people in the room were mocking him. Then that angry woman turned to me. She slapped me, and I couldn't think straight after that. It felt like a lightning bolt hit me. I heard someone shouting, "Hit her again!" The voice sounded a lot like my mother's. I looked around for her and felt something sharp biting into my ankle. I looked down and saw a small, troll-like kid angrily munching on my leg. I searched for Dennis. He was leaving the room, still in tears.
I got up from the bed wearing only the corset. My lower half was still bare, but I didn't care. I needed to reach Dennis and try to talk to him. My mind raced, and I came up with a quick story. "Dennis! He tricked me!" I yelled. "He's always been jealous of us. Remember back in our college days?" "He tricked you twice?" Dennis asked, and everyone in the room turned to stare at me, even my mom. "What do you mean twice?" I replied, confused. "He brought you to this same motel room yesterday," he said. "That's how I knew where to find you. You've been treating me badly for a while, so I hired someone to follow you. The last time you hurt me like this was when you were with that Eric guy." "You're terrible!" shouted Hank's short wife. Then she jumped up and slapped me again. A young, pretty blonde woman stepped through the crowd and approached me. Even though she was taller, thinner, and looked nothing like me, we might have been sisters. She had a briefcase and was chewing gum. She popped her gum a few times and then looked at me. "Belinda Williams?" she asked. I nodded. "That's her!" shouted a few people in the growing crowd. "Shame on her!" others yelled. "You've been served," she said, handing me a big stack of papers. I grabbed her arm as she turned to leave. "Do you have a car?" I asked. "Sure," she said, pointing to a pink Mustang GT with some charity stickers on it. "Please help me out," I said. "Get me out of here." "I was never on the cheer team," she replied. "Have a nice day." And then she walked away, leaving me alone with the crowd. With no other options, I started to run. I didn't get far when a police car drove up in front of me. They arrested me for going out without proper clothes and took me to jail. They gave me one of those bright orange jumpsuits to cover myself. I tried to call Dennis, but he didn't pick up. I tried to call my mom, but she didn't answer either. Finally, I called Della, and she came to the station to help me. She even brought me some clothes, but they were hers, so I had to squeeze into them. "Wow, she looks really cramped in those clothes," one of my cellmates joked. I got a ticket for being in public without proper clothing, but I didn't have to go to court. I just had to pay $300. Since I had been running down a public street where kids could see me, my name was added to a list of people who had done wrong things. I went over to the ATM at the police station, but none of my credit cards worked. Della paid my fine and told me I needed to pay her back before the week was over. She drove me home, and I thanked her for being there for me. I walked up to the door and realized that none of my keys worked. I peeked into the garage to see if Dennis's special Mustang was inside. If it was, that meant Dennis was home and just didn't want to let me in. I saw his Jeep parked there, the one he drove in winter to keep his Mustang safe. Next to it was my BMW. I was shocked to see that my car had a "for sale" sign on it. I started banging on the garage door and kicking it. Within a few minutes, a police car pulled up. 2 officers got out and put their hands near their guns. "Get on the ground!" shouted one officer. "Why?" I asked. "We've been watching this house," the officer said. "The owner told us that his troubled ex-wife might try to break in before he sells it. You look a bit troubled yourself." "And quite the ex," added the second officer. "Just leave," said the first officer. "Don't come back here. I'm giving you a warning. Next time, you're going to jail." I walked over to my neighbor's house and knocked on her door. She was a kind old lady. She opened the door a little but kept the chain on. "Mrs. Dorright, can you help me?" I asked. "I'm the one who called the police on you," she replied. "Should I call them again?" "We've lived next to each other for 10 years, I explained. "I've taken care of your cat when you were away. I've watered your plants. I helped you when you were not feeling well. All I need is to make a few phone calls." "Okay," she said, sounding hesitant. "I guess I owe you, but I don't want any trouble, so once you use the phone, we're done. Stay back from the door and keep your hands where I can see them." She stepped out of her house with her eyes fixed on me, wearing one of those old-fashioned dresses. In her hand, she held a cordless phone. Clearly, I was no longer welcome in the house. In a surprising twist, she held a serious-looking handgun in one hand, aimed right at me. What shocked me even more was that she had a spray bottle of disinfectant in the pocket of her old dress. I grabbed my phone and called Dennis. It rang twice before he picked up. "Hi," he said, sounding cheerful. He didn't seem upset at all. "Dennis, I'm really sorry," I said. "Can we just talk and—" Suddenly, I heard just the dial tone. I tried calling again, but it went straight to voicemail. The message said his mailbox was full, which didn't make sense. His voicemails were saved on the company's servers. I often had to go in and clear out his mailbox because he rarely listened to the many messages piling up.
I decided to call Dennis at work. They told me he had taken the day off to play golf. His secretary hung up before I could ask to leave a message. I thought I heard her murmur something unkind as she ended the call. It felt like she wanted me to hear it. I called my mom. It took 3 tries before she finally picked up. "What do you want?" she asked. "Mom, I need a place to stay while I figure things out," I said. It felt like forever before she replied. "After the way you treated poor Dennis, why should I let you stay here?" she asked. "I'm your daughter," I said sharply. "And you don't even like Dennis. You always said he wasn't good enough for me." "That was tough love," she replied. "I was hard on him so he'd never treat you badly or ignore you. For the past 10 years, that guy has done so much for you. He bought you that beautiful house. He got you that nice car, and you treated him like he was just your servant. But even worse, you were unfaithful to him with someone who isn't a good person and is married to a circus performer. What were you thinking? You should have treated that poor man like royalty, especially after he forgave you the first time you were unfaithful to him." "Mom, how did you find out about that?" I asked. "It's everywhere in the news," she said. "Things are so bad that Dennis is thinking of leaving town after the divorces." "What do you mean, divorces?" I asked. "Hank's partner is divorcing him too," she replied. "That's great," I said. "Can you come and get me?" "If I had a car, why would Dennis have to keep picking me up all the time?" she asked. "Take a taxi, but come in the back door. I don't want anyone to know that I'm related to the town's troublemaker." Before I could say that I didn't have any money for a taxi, she hung up. I called Penny, and she said she would come and get me. I thanked Mrs. Dowright. She quickly sprayed her phone with disinfectant and wiped it with a cloth she took from her pocket. Then she did it again and tossed the cloth in the trash. "Can you please wait for your friend somewhere my husband Dudley won't see you if he comes home early?" she asked as she closed the door. "Dudley has a thing for trouble." A few minutes later, Penny arrived. She looked around the house even though she noticed me. "Get in the back seat and lie low," she instructed. I looked at her in disbelief. As she drove away from the curb, I glanced at her. She was wearing large sunglasses. "So, is Dennis okay?" she asked. "Seriously, Penny," I whispered fiercely. "The least you could do is wait until I try to save my marriage before you go after my husband. You're supposed to be my friend." "So I get in trouble for being your friend?" she replied, annoyed. "Just keep your head down, okay? I don't want anyone to see you in my car." She dropped me off behind my mom's building in the senior center and drove off quickly. When I walked in, my mom was waiting at the back door. She hurried me inside her apartment. "So I guess you couldn't find a mask or something?" she asked. "It's not enough that you want to use our relationship to get me to help you. Now you want to ruin my reputation too?" "Mom, it's going to be fine. There are 2 options here. First, I can give Dennis some time to calm down and then we can talk. I'll make him see things my way. He loves me. Being away from me will drive him to—" I stopped when I saw my mom laughing hard, holding her stomach in the chair. "Okay," I said. "I don't love Hank, but the second option is that, after the divorces are finalized, I can just marry Hank." "I don't love him, but he has a lot of money so he can take care of us," I said. My mother stood up from her chair and came over to me. She gently placed her head on mine. Then she shook her head and lightly tapped my cheek, making me lose track of everything, time, date, and even where we were. I suddenly remembered my teenage years. "I promise I'll never smoke again, Mommy," I said. "Who told you that Hank was a millionaire?" she asked. "Hank did," I replied. "Sweetheart, I think you might be mistaken," she said. "Either that or you're not thinking clearly. Hank Walker doesn't have a job. He owns just 1 suit and 2 pairs of underwear. He's not living in reality. He's been going around saying that for 10 years. Dennis has been chasing him everywhere and getting him fired. Have you seen his wife? Would a rich man or even someone with a little money be married to her?" I was shocked. "But why?" I started to ask. "Because he's a man," she answered. "He's quite the charmer, isn't he? He just takes advantage of women who are naive and trusting. Have you seen who he married? It's no surprise he's looking for someone else who might fall for his tricks." "But," I started to say. "Sweetheart, you need to get a lawyer and sort this out fast," she urged. "I have to talk to Dennis," I complained. "Listen, everyone is talking about this already. People in town dislike you. There were folks with cameras. This is already online and it might spread everywhere. If you don't do something soon, it could reach across the country. There are lawyers lining up to help Dennis sue you for messing up his name. He's already thinking about moving away. He took you back after you were unfaithful to him the first time. Now men are laughing at him and women are upset with you. Let him go before things become even worse. Last I heard, Hank's wife was planning to take legal action against you for breaking up her family and other complaints. There's even a lawyer from New York who said that her husband cheating on her made her feel so bad that it affected her health. She wants to sue you for that, too. Meanwhile, people in town are treating her like a princess and seeing you as the bad person. You should go meet with Dennis's lawyer, sign the divorce papers, and ask for a few $1,000s along with your clothes before you leave. It's best to cut your losses. Find a job and start fresh before things get worse. Belinda I ended up leaving town after signing the divorce papers. I changed my name back to my old name. I was quite fortunate. Dennis, still having feelings for me, was kind and gave me a fair settlement. I only had a chance to talk to him once. It was at his lawyer's office. His reaction gave me hope that, in the end, we would find a way to reconnect. When I walked into the room, Dennis smiled at me. It felt like seeing me made his day brighter. But then his lawyer nudged him and his smile faded. Still, I could sense there was care left. I also knew I wouldn't get much. My lawyer had warned me that it would be a miracle to leave town safely. Dennis's lawyer offered me $5,000, my car, and all my things. Dennis took his lawyer aside. At first, I thought he was upset about the amount. I quickly took the pen and got ready to sign the papers before they changed their minds. "Don't sign that, Belinda," Dennis said firmly. He and the lawyer talked some more. The lawyer took the papers and made a few changes. He signed off on some parts and showed the papers to a woman in the office who was there to witness the signing. He brought the papers to me so I could sign them. I saw then that Dennis had increased the amount of money. He was giving me $10,000. I quickly signed the papers and looked up to thank Dennis, but he had his head in his hands and I sensed he was feeling overwhelmed. His lawyer gave me my copies of the papers and a check. Then he took Dennis out of the room. Everyone left in the room, including my lawyer, who hadn't helped me, looked at me as if I had just come from nowhere. I couldn't believe I had messed up my life and caused pain to a man who loved me deeply. I moved to the next state and rented an apartment. It was a big change from the lovely home I had given up. I called my mom often and learned that I really had pushed Dennis away. After he sold our home, which he had to sell for about $5,000 less than it was worth, he moved away. The shame of what I'd done went much deeper than I thought. Della and Penny told me that even his closest friends had distanced themselves from me. At first, I couldn't find a job, so I ended up working as a waitress. It was tough, and I didn't get many tips. My boss, the woman who owned the diner, said I had a bad attitude. She said I came off as unfriendly and the customers could feel it. She mentioned a few complaints, but reassured me that my job was safe. A few weeks later, I noticed she kept staring at me and would get uncomfortably close whenever she could. Things really hit me 5 months later at our college reunion. I was upset at first because I had been in charge of planning the event. We had decided to hold it at my house, but I was taken off the committee and made to pay to go. My annoyance grew, and I ended up leaving the event early. I ran into that little red-headed girl who tried to take Dennis from me back in college. She looked so happy and was glowing, even though she was pregnant. Somehow she looked even slimmer and prettier than she did back then. I heard she had a good job, but she wanted a change. Her old job made her travel a lot, and she didn't want to do that anymore. She sat down at a table, and soon half the women in the room went over to chat with her. They should have been coming to me. I used to be the head cheerleader. Back in college, hardly anyone even knew who she was. Then I noticed that sitting with her were Dennis's 2 friends. The bigger guy was there with his wife. The wife was talking to the little redhead a lot. It was clear they knew each other well. At that moment, I wished I had spent more time with Dennis's friends. I couldn't remember the big guy's name or his wife's either. It made me feel really dumb. We had all gone to college together, and those 2 guys had been at my house almost every day. They were my husband's best friends, and here I was, forgetting their names. I realized this said more about me than about them. They looked really happy. Even my 2 closest friends hadn't noticed me yet. I guess they thought I would come dressed up and make a big entrance. But without Dennis by my side, I didn't have enough money for fancy clothes. I kept my eyes on the table. Honestly, I was more curious about whether Dennis would come to the reunion than I was about Penny and Della. Then something unexpected happened. I had thought the redhead was with Dennis's other friend, the thin guy who never seemed to have a girlfriend. As he sat down and started to laugh, a short woman with a curvy figure approached and sat on his lap. If the redhead who had captured my attention wasn't with either of them, then who was she with? I was then distracted when Penny arrived. "I didn't even know you were here!" she exclaimed as she gave me a hug. "Yeah," I replied. "They made me pay at the door." "Oh, that must have been a mistake," she said, sounding a bit nervous. "What's going on with the redhead?" I asked. "Oh, you remember Stephanie, right?" she answered. "She was a freshman when we were seniors. Remember how sweet it was when she had a soft spot for Dennis?" "I didn't think it was that sweet," I said. Penny, is Dennis here?" "Honey, Dennis is already here," she explained. "He's in the running for Reunion King. He had to go back to his hotel to grab something for—" While she spoke, I noticed Dennis walking back into the room. He looked amazing in a sharp suit. His hair was freshly cut, and he had a big smile on his face. He seemed like he was finally over the hurt I caused him. Maybe he was even eager to see me, just like I was excited to see him. I started to walk over to him when my friend grabbed my arm. "Belinda, don't go over there," she said firmly. "Why not?" I replied. "He looks happy again. I can feel it. Maybe we can talk now." "Belinda, as your friend, I want you to know he is happy, but—" she started. I waved my hand to stop her. I had been through a lot in the last 5 months. It was time for me to find some good luck. As I walked across the room, I heard bits of conversation. "Can't believe she's not running for queen. Who cares? She's still pretty." My confidence grew with every word I heard. Then I got closer to the table and saw Dennis walk up and put a pillow behind that red-headed girl. I stood there, surprised, my mouth open in shock. I just stood there, confused. Everyone in the room could see me clearly. Della walked over and stood next to me. "Are you as upset as I am?" she asked. "I came here hoping your ex would be here, and he is, but he brought Stephanie with him. How is that even possible? It's only been 6 months since your divorce." "Do you really think they are together?" I asked. "Remember back in college, Dennis used to help her with her studies. Maybe he's just being nice." "I wish he would be nice to me," she said. "I think he looks even better since you two split up. Can you believe they asked her to run for queen and she said no? She said no one wanted to see her pregnant body on that stage. Her belly is smaller than mine, and she's pregnant. I'm starting a diet tomorrow." I felt overwhelmed and went to sit at the bar, taking a drink. From the side, I saw my husband giving all his attention to that red-headed woman. I started to feel tricked. A little later, Della came by. She advised me not to drink too much and brought along the big guy's wife. I noticed Della asking about the redhead. "So how far along is she?" Della asked. "She's about 5 months," said the other woman. "Is she going to marry the father?" Della wondered. "Wouldn't you?" laughed the other woman. "It's funny. I've known him for all this time, and I never thought Dennis wanted kids so much. I know Belinda wanted to wait, and—" "Della," I said, quickly getting off my bar stool. "You aren't saying that redhead is having my husband's baby, are you?" "Honey, you and Dennis are pretty much done," she said. "He can do whatever he wants with whoever he wants. I tried to warn you that he's moved on. Even if he hadn't, you broke his heart, Belinda. You really messed up chances of keeping him when you found yourself in that hotel room with Hank. You should feel glad he found someone else. Just look at the two of them together. They're really sweet. They even have their own funny names for things. Like when they go off to have some time away, they call it playing golf because—" My mind was racing. All those times Dennis claimed he was playing golf. Could he really have meant something else? Then I noticed something else. The woman with red hair was almost as far along in her pregnancy as the time since my divorce began. I don't believe in coincidences. Dennis must have been with her before we even filed for divorce. The golf thing hit me again harder. What really upset me was that Dennis only gave me a small amount of money, just $10,000. We had saved a lot of money and had some investments, but I had been tricked into accepting very little in return. At that moment, I understood that my life was in trouble and I knew who was to blame. It wasn't my fault and it wasn't Dennis's fault either. Every marriage goes through hard times. I know Dennis loved me. I believe that deeply. We could have worked through our problems if it hadn't been for Hank, who took advantage of me when I was feeling weak. Hank had to face the consequences. I asked Della if she had heard anything about Hank. She told me that Hank and his wife were almost finished with their divorce. That didn't surprise me, as she wanted to take me to court, too. Her lawyer had called and warned me that the legal trouble would start once the divorce was settled. I just laughed because I didn't have much money, and it was Hank who led me into this mess. They weren't going to get anything from me. Anyway, Della told me that Hank and his wife were still staying in a hotel on the other side of town. I was a bit tipsy, but still clear enough to go over and confront him for messing up my life. I got into my car but struggled to start it. The parking attendant was trying to say I shouldn't drive because I had too much to drink. I just closed the door and drove away. Okay, I drove up onto the sidewalk and almost hit a fire hydrant, but it was because he made me nervous. I pulled into the parking lot of the rundown hotel without any more trouble. I had no idea how to find Hank's room, but I got lucky. I saw one of his kids playing and followed him. I watched as the child went back inside the hotel room. The door wasn't even locked. I looked through the window and didn't see either adult in the room. I changed my mind and decided to go back to my car. But before I could move, someone hit me on the back of my head. Everything went dark after that. I woke up a little while later with a police officer shining a light in my eyes, telling me not to move. I tried to sit up and realized there was a gun in my hand. Then I heard a woman screaming loudly behind me. Her voice sounded familiar. That's her. That's the woman right there. It was Hank's wife, and she was pointing at me. I drifted off again. When I came to, I heard people talking. She was drunk and ranting. I told her she shouldn't drive. She drove over the grass and hit the curb. She almost ran into two people as she left the parking lot. Well, I heard her at the bar. She was already drunk and complaining about how some guy had ruined her life and he needed to pay. A detective came and just looked at me. "Why did you hurt him?" he asked. "I know you and he were involved. Did it start back in college or just recently?" I stumbled over my words. "I know your divorce was because of it," he said. "Is that why you got so mad that you hurt him?" Another officer walked into the room. "You have a visitor," he said. "I'll bring her in, but you're stuck to the desk so you can't leave." I thought it would be my mother, Della, or Penny. I never expected her to walk in. Tears were rolling down her small, plain face. She sat down and looked at me with a smile. "I saw my husband at the reunion," I said. "I had been drinking and was upset, but I didn't mean to hurt Hank. I wanted to let him know how he impacted my life, but when I got there, I changed my mind. I was just going to go home and try to forget. I had other plans for dealing with Hank. I promise I've never even touched a gun before." "I never meant to hurt anyone." "I get that," she replied. "But sometimes things go wrong. Maybe someone hit you, and when you woke up, that person was gone. The facts will show you didn't do anything wrong, but if I were you, I would keep quiet until then. Ask for a lawyer. Don't say anything until you have one. You got yourself into this mess." She stood up and walked out of the room. She stopped at the door and said, "I want you to know I forgive you. You weren't yourself, and with everything that's happened, anyone could lose control." 3 days later, the police cleared me of the charges. I was still held for things I did do, like drinking and driving, almost hitting two people, and damaging the grass in front of the school parking lot. I received a large fine and was released for the time I had already spent. My driver's license was taken away for 6 months, but by then, they knew I had been set up. During the first 3 days, while they waited for my gunpowder test results and looked into the bullet paths, Hank's wife was busy giving interviews to magazines, newspapers, radio, and TV. Everyone wanted to talk to the sad widow while the story was still fresh. She made a fortune. They say she got over $1 million in total and then vanished. At least I don't have to stress about the lawsuit anymore. An interesting detail was that the fingerprints found on the gun, besides mine, were hers. They also discovered that Hank could only have been shot by someone shorter than 5 feet. I heard she is now in South America, in a place where they won't send her back. As I waited in jail for my release, I thought about how my marriage had fallen apart. I couldn't believe how easily Dennis had fixed his life and moved on without me. It felt like he had planned it all along.
I was set up, yelled the woman I shared my cell with. They tricked me into taking the money for that job. Suddenly, it hit me that what she was yelling about was exactly what had happened to me. I had treated Dennis poorly, and he had grown tired of it. So he let me get myself into trouble. What did the woman call it? Entrapment. Sadly, entrapment was only against the law when the police did it. Dennis' eyes snapped back to reality and saw Steph smiling at me. I'll go back to the furniture store and get the same crib in the same color, I said. Everything will be okay. What should we name them? One after my mom and one after yours, she answered with a smile. She opened her arms and reached out to me. My doctor says I can't play golf for about a month, but after that, we can focus on the kids. What will we do when they're all grown up and moved out? I asked. We can sit on our porch by the lake and just enjoy the moment, she replied with a playful smile. I never thought I could care for anyone as much as I care for you, I admitted. I just never pictured that in my life. Dennis, she said softly, sometimes things just don't go the way you expect. Hey, audience, if you like this video and want to keep up with more thrilling stories, make sure to subscribe to Prince Cheating Tales and hit the notification bell. You don't want to miss out on our upcoming adventures. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next wonderful story.